Hi, I'm Jen Henning from FlippedNormals, and in today's podcast episode, we are going to be touching on the ever explosive topic of AI. And specifically, we're going to be talking about our future policies for AI on FlippedNormals, our marketplace. And then we'll get into some of the things that, let's say, we're a little bit concerned / terrified about, but also things we are excited about for the future of AI. In terms of the policy, that's something that we've sort of deliberately not really done anything about, because for us, for most of the time, it was more like, I don't know, I guess we approached it with more of in our minds, a common sense approach, where we thought, okay, if this lines up with what we do here at FlippedNormals, things being artist driven, things being to improve artists' their learning routines or speed up their workflows. Let's evaluate it. And for the majority of the things that were uploaded to the platform, we've sort of just taken it down. I think in contrast to a lot of other platforms, the amount of AI content on FlippedNormals has been pretty minimal. The type of stuff that you might have seen on FlippedNormals was the occasional thumbnail was maybe generated with AI, but the content itself was, I think, almost 100% of the time generated by people. Sometimes it's hard to tell. There are some utilities, like utility-based products, where AI has played a factor, and so either we haven't been able to tell, or we've made the judgment call that this was an okay product to have. But I think with the recent turmoil, both from ArtStation, whatever's happening with DeviantArt, and also CG Trader, all that stuff has made us realize that it was a good idea for us to actually formulate a proper policy, a guideline that we could put out in good faith and have on our platform, so that people knew exactly what we were going to stand for and what we would allow and not allow on the marketplace.
We started getting a bit afraid about this when CG Trader put in a pretty insane policy that basically said that if you upload anything to CG Trader, they're going to be able to use that for training AIs, and they will own all the output of the AI models in general. So we had support tickets asking about to delete their FlippedNormals accounts because they were afraid we were going to do the same thing. And we obviously have no interest in that. Our policy is on FlippedNormals has always been for artist by artist. I mean, Morten and I here, we went to art school. That's where we met. We have a very strong background in art for a very long time. So it's really important to us that we continue with that spirit. And what we do on FlippedNormals needs to reflect that. So at a fundamental level, we are pro-artist. That is how we're going to be approaching this whole thing. And that means that any kind of AI-generated promotion images are completely banned. Like, you're not allowed to have AI-generated thumbnails or gallery images or banners or anything like that. So one of the reasons is obviously that it's false advertising, but also it's just not a very good look for the marketplace. We have to be very careful with the kind of content we're allowing. 3D models made with AI are not going to be allowed. That's currently not really an issue, since you can't really generate 3D models with AI, at least not to any reasonable degree today. But we're just thinking a little bit ahead. Then reference packs, illustration packs, and similar products that are fully AI generated, they're not serving a purpose apart from being a finished piece. They're not allowed either. This is what you're seeing if you go on ArtStation, if you go to the marketplace there. It's just flooded with it. You can't find the products you want because of it's just filled with those. For reference packs, it's also like such a bad one, because if they're AI generated, you kind of by definition can't trust it. Like, if we're being character artists, we can't look at an AI generated image of reference and use that for anything meaningful because it's not photographic, it's not based on scans, it's not based on anything real. So it's the more you look at it, the worse it actually gets in terms of pure reference. So we're very careful about that. Nothing that's fully AI generated that's going to be used as an image by itself. Then the one thing we are allowing is we are pro-artist. We want to allow tools that help artists. So we're going to be allowing AI-based utility tools that speed up artists' work. This would be something like scripts and alphas and brushes and things like that. Basically things to help artists get ahead. These are not things that are going to take anyone's jobs. It's going to be things that speed up your workflow.
Yeah, and it's we've had a lot of back and forth on the whole, approach to this, whether it should be like a full ban on anything AI has ever touched, or should we? Is it like, okay, so how much leeway do we actually want to have here? And from our point of view, the utility based route is one that makes the most sense to us. It's something that we can see ourselves using. It's something that we can see ourselves doing, but also it's something that we can see artists benefit from. This whole discussion is tricky, right? And that's also why up until this point, there hasn't really been anything formulated. It's all been like on a case by case basis, and that will continue. So even though we say, we're going to allow this and that, and we won't allow that, we're still going to be taking a look at products individually if things are flagged, and make an assessment whether or not we feel like it fits with the general content on the platform, but also what we stand for. This doesn't mean that, on a case-by-case basis, we might allow some reference packs. That's not going to happen, because that's an end product that just doesn't fit that description of utilities. And I hope this is something that the majority of people can get behind. From the feedback that we got about this policy, at least, it seems like most people would be okay with this approach. We talked about this for the past couple of days, that at least for me, I feel like it's wishful thinking to live in this world where like we'll ban everything that AI has touched and will touch, because the reality is AI is just it hasn't really crept its way into society. It's like exploded onto the scene. It was very fast. And I think that's one of the things that makes it scary, is the progress that these tools seemingly make overnight. 6 months go by a release for a tool or something, and all of a sudden it's on a different level compared to what it was before. I think Midjourney is always an interesting example, and it's interesting to follow to see what happens version to version. And when they came out with version 6, which was recently, the jump in the types of prompts that it would, or the types of images it would generate from prompts, was like kind of scary. Henning and I took a look at it, where it's like, so you type in man in robe with glowing sword. Okay, we have straight up Mark Hamill on the screen as a Jedi, and what kind of effects this or consequences is that going to have? But hopefully, with this approach for the marketplace, I hope that puts people's minds at ease. Now, one thing I also wanted to mention is that with all the 3D model stuff that CG Trader was doing, that's never going to happen with us. We will never create our own model and upload things from our library to train a model. It's not something we're interested in. The same thing with user data or scraping of any kind. Obviously we can't. It's hard to safeguard yourself against automated scraping visually, but at the same time, what has value on FlippedNormals isn't so much the gallery images, the banners, or the thumbnails. It's the actual products. And even if we were to implement things that spiked the images, or in one way or another made sure that AIs couldn't use the scraped visual stuff they got from FlippedNormals, that does exist on pretty much every single other marketplace out there. And so in order for that to be effective, I guess it has to be like a joint effort from everyone. And it's very clear to me that we are, and this is not to put ourselves on a pedestal, but we seem to be some of the only ones wanting to go the more artist-friendly route and try to keep AI out of the picture as much as possible.
The way we kind of been approaching this is very much with the community in mind. We've been asking people on Twitter. We've been We have sent out a newsletter to all our creators and got really good feedback on that. And they're also based on just seeing the general sentiment in the market, and also just, of course, our own feelings towards AI as well. But the reality is just that AI is here, and our policies reflect how AI can help artists instead of hurting artists. And I find this to be a fairly sensible approach to it. So with this as well, if people find AI products on our marketplace, then just let us know as well. We're going to have help documents up on this, and we haven't officially implemented the policy yet, but once we do, let us know if you find something, and we'll be more than happy to have a look. We are a curated marketplace, but sometimes stuff slips through, so it's just important that we get help from this as well. So we got questions about what tools are you using to detecting things. There aren't any tools available for this in any meaningful way. The way we're doing this is by looking at things and taking a proper look and evaluating this. Some stuff you can very easily tell is AI, and some stuff is very, very hard to tell. But we're using a human approach to this, both for creating the marketplace, creating our own tutorials, and curating the marketplace, really making sure that it's a place. Like, it sounds cheesy, but like, by artists for artists. Like, that is genuinely our approach with everything we're doing in there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and
no,
sorry, go ahead. Yeah, I just wanted to say that this approach to curation is, I mean, I wouldn't even know how to automate it, right? It's I don't think you really can. But the way curation works in general at FlippedNormals, to give you some inside perspective, is that all creators are checked. Like, all creators have to be approved manually. So every creator who makes it onto the store, their products are evaluated. Sometimes, and it doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes it does happen where someone will send in a portfolio and it looks legit, but they're actually going to be uploading other stuff instead. Obviously, when we see this kind of stuff, we've been misled and we terminate their store. It doesn't represent what we've approved. Other times, they have really good stuff, but then they also decide to upload other stuff we haven't seen before. Sometimes it's AI-based stuff, and sometimes we don't catch that, because while we do look through our trending pages regularly, we look through our recent products, we can't go in and moderate every single product one by one. We have more than 30,000 products on the store. And we also need to produce content. We need to, keep things flowing. So we don't have the time to go in and individually look at products. But that's where people of the community come in. And when people find something, we will take a look at it. I remember some time ago, there was a post on Reddit. It kind of made me sad in a way, where someone found a product. Like, we had shared a product on, I believe, Instagram maybe, or just our social media in general, of something that we thought this looked cool, and we got it out there. Turns out it was an AI generated product, or maybe it was just the thumbnail or something that was AI generated. Either way, some part of it was AI generated, and we hadn't caught that. And what happened is, it made it to Reddit, and people started complaining, and they were very disappointed at us that we were sort of allowing this type of content. And when this stuff happens, when content like that doesn't fit with our policy, it's not a malicious thing from us. It's simply because it slipped through the cracks, and then we do take action when things are brought to us on things like that.
So overall, we're very excited about being able to do this. Like Morten mentioned, I believe we are the first of these kind of companies that fundamentally are pro-artist. It seems like the vast majority of them now, they're trying to make money from this, making money from data, and we have no interest in that. Like, genuinely no interest. We'll never sell your data. We'll never we never train our own things. The data is secured on FlippedNormals, and it goes up to a server where the person buying it gets it from that server. That's the extent of it. We keep it very simple and very, very, very artist focused. So with that, we can proceed to the second part of the video, which is essentially our thoughts on AI, the future of it, and current state of it. There are three main parts we want to talk about here. The first one is what excites us. The second one is what concerns us, and the third is what terrifies us. Before we get into that, there are two main issues with AI, which is going to be going through this whole discussion. The first one is that all AI models today are trained on data they don't have permission to access. This is everything that OpenAI has touched, as far as we know. Midjourney, DALL-E, all the other models. they're trained on they're not authorized to do that, which is a huge concern. Obviously, nobody had the permission to use my 3D models and MJ's 3D models to do anything with that. We never give permission, and nobody is ever been compensated for that. So that's, no matter what we're talking about here, keep that in the back of your mind. We could caveat every single point with, but it's not ethically trained. So a lot of this kind of stuff we're talking about when it comes to like what are we excited about, we kind of have to have an assumption here that AI is here no matter what the underlying algorithms are, and it's not going away at the moment, and also with the hope that this is going to be rectified in the future, but we generally have no control over that. AI is here, and it doesn't seem to be going away. Then the second point is that it's a huge threat to artists at the moment. It's with the tools like Midjourney, the floodgates have just opened up, and people are having a really hard time with that, from a motivational point of view, to people losing their freelance jobs, to all sorts of bad faith images being created in a very, very nasty personal manner, to deepfakes, to everything else. So it's a huge threat to the artist community at this point. So with that said, let's get into stuff that we're actually excited about. The first one being that seems like FlippedNormals, we're able to punch above our weight because we can leverage these tools. We don't use image generators, but we've been using ChatGPT to do tasks that would sometimes take us quite a lot of time that we would get completely stuck at.
Yeah, I think one of the important things there to note is that when you have a team, so for FlippedNormals, for example, we're 3 people, that's it. And we do everything. We handle customer support, curation, content creation, podcast stuff, YouTube, finances. I mean, we do have an accountant for the actual finances, but like collecting and all the fun stuff. So a lot of time just goes with admin stuff, and that's what it's like to be a small team. But with some AI tools like Chat, we're able to automate tasks and do things that would normally take us a long time. And I think in my case, it's been very valuable because a lot of my workflows have been able to been sped up by Chat. I can generate small scripts. I can have like a command line tool to quickly do something. Hey, I need to convert all these files. Okay. In the past, I would Google how to do it and be like, okay, there's no actual tool how to do this. You would have to install something that I don't have or would need to buy. So I end up doing it. It takes 3 hours. Now with Chat, I can do it in maybe 10 minutes. Cool. Okay, that leaves me 2 hours and 50 minutes for some of the other tasks, like getting back to customers, issuing refunds. Hopefully not too many of those, but you get my point. And that's been the overall thing that I've been using it for. I've tested out in the early stages of Midjourney. I tested out some of the generative stuff, and it was cool. Like, it was fun to see, your vision come to life. But from a personal point of view, it was also like there wasn't that much I could use it for. I could definitely see it being, if we have something that's ethical, where you have a model that allows you to generate concepts or develop further on your concepts. But obviously all of that depends on where everything is sourced from, right? Like Henning just mentioned, it's all the redundant stuff. That's one of the things where I feel like it could be a big help. Like if you have libraries that are, let's call them good libraries, and where you pick an art style, you pick the general direction where you want to go to help speed up your concepting. At present time, obviously, it doesn't really work with the current implementation because, I mean, it's all stolen art. And I think especially, we talked about this before, from a company point of view. Let's say you're a VFX house and you end up using these tools. Maybe you make something based off of an IP you don't recognize. You end up doing something because an artist on your team is using a Gen AI tool to create something, and no one made sure to check that it wasn't something that someone else owned. Those are the issues that you can run into with that stuff, and of the fact that it's stolen, of course. But in a perfect world, you would have a nice library where you could generate ideas from.
Yeah, I've been using this to help me make tutorials. One of the parts I always do for one of my courses is I make PDFs at the end. Some of the courses, man, they're big courses. The last one was Introduction to Anatomy, and it's like 16 hours long or something, packed with information. Making a PDF for that, a hot PDF, is like legit a 2-3 day task for that. What I did instead, I used a transcription tool in Premiere Pro to just transcribe all the videos. It just gave me a summary of all of it. It took only like a few minutes to do all of it. It took a few minutes per video, maybe like an hour in total. Put that all into ChatGPT and told it, give me a summary. Then I cleaned that summary up and I rewrote parts of this. I stitched it back together and such, and the whole document was made in about half a day. And this means that instead of me spending 3 days on it, I could refine the tutorial. I could do something else that the end product became better because of the tools we had. And in a lot of cases with these tools, it's not that I spend 3 days on it; it's that I don't do the task. So just because it just takes way too long to do that, spending 3 days on a help PDF for a document, like that's 3 full days with full time on this. It's like 24 hours. It's a long time to spend on something like that. So it's not really time we can necessarily budget for these things. We had a task when we were rebuilding the website last year where we needed to split out a lot of data, and we could use something called regex for that. Who on earth knows what regex is? I didn't. ChatGPT was able to do that task for us in just like half an hour or something, and was able to do that. That saved Morten and I 2 days of manual labor each or something, just because of that. And It's not like we could have learned regex. It's not that we could have done that. Instead, it would have taken us like more time to learn that than to just spit it out. So that is legit one of the things that makes me very excited about it, that small teams can really punch above their weight. It's not like it's not like we would fire employees for that. We don't have employees to fire. It's more just that we can do stuff that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to do. Of course, firing off people is a massive concern that we'll get to in the future. But at least for smaller teams, we just get to do more stuff, more content, more stuff for YouTube, better tutorials. We get to learn things faster. So very, very excited about that. Things like uppressing images as well. Phenomenal. Very useful for texturing and all that kind of work.
Yeah, I've used like an upscaler quite a few times actually, and they're super powerful. One of the things that is important to keep in mind there as well is that it also depends on who you are and what you do. Like, this is something we talked about before recording this podcast, is that whose creativity do we prioritize? Right? Because if I say that I don't like to do retopo and UVs, and I get an AI tool or a tool that automates that process for me, great. I can spend my creativity, I can spend that on other things. But effectively, that's taken the job away from someone else. And not that this makes me excited, this is partially a concern. But I think it's important to realize, different aspects of the pipeline within games and VFX will affect different people. So maybe some people, they want to do models, they just want to sculpt or something, but they need a concept, so they'll use a generative AI to generate an image that takes away jobs from concept artists. Someone wants to make a children's book, but they don't know how to illustrate, they can use generative AI for that, but obviously that takes jobs away from illustrators. And so it's this constant balance of what's important to keep in, I guess, society in a way, to make people happy and have something that they enjoy working with, but also at the same time, how do we optimize things to speed things up?
When I was in VFX, we had an NPC, we had massive departments in Bangalore in India, and the work they were doing there was more repetitive work, which was retopology, UV mapping. That was an assets creation. I don't know what they're doing in other departments, but presumably like rotoscoping and different things like that. And by taking away, but Bill's saying that, well, retopology can be done faster, so I can just sculpt, all of those jobs are going away then. That means that every single one of these jobs are going to disappear. That means that there are thousands of people that in Bangalore that are not going to have jobs anymore. And people doing the same jobs in the UK, US, Canada, they're also going to lose those jobs. And the problem with this is that there isn't really a soft transition period It's not like you can go from, oh, I'll just learn to sculpt then, or learn to art direct or something, because you don't have time to reskill, because that's a huge thing to learn. Learning to do retopology is something that doesn't take that long to do. So you could go from basically being a student to doing retopology professionally within not too long, but going from that to the next level of the sculpting or the art direction, that is just a huge jump, which means that being excited about these tools, which we can be about UV mapping, retopology, and all that, which it's going to get an AI treatment at some point. There is a second order effect of that. That is that entry-level jobs are effectively going away. Like if you're thinking about like, oh, but rotoscoping, it's a boring thing to do. The people who do rotoscoping, they want to go into comp. Yeah, but rotoscoping is often an entry-level job into comp. It really has consequences that we don't really understand these consequences yet. Obviously, the tech also isn't fully developed in these areas, but it gets complicated. It really gets complicated when you're talking about being excited about some of these tools. And I am excited about some of these tools, but the fact that entry-level positions would be disappearing, that is a problem, because if entry-level jobs disappear, then who's joining the industry then? Because everyone joins entry-level kind of by definition. Then you have to work in your own time until you hit mid-level, and you can't really do that because you need just the industry experience to hit like a level like that. So it's a very complicated discussion. It's very complicated what's going to happen here. It's very complicated to see what's going to happen based on this. The second order effects of AI taking over anything here it's pretty intense.
I mean, I remember this even when we were back in VFX, and I can't remember the tool. It was a retopology tool that came out when we were working there. They've ported it to ZBrush as well.
Wrap 3? Do
you remember that? Yeah, it's Wrap. And when that started to flourish around and Framestore and DNX started using it, but keep in mind, this is not AI based. Not everything is AI based. It was just really good algorithm for wrapping topology onto a model. When that started to be used in-house and you could automate, you could batch retopo things with it, which wasn't very complicated. I think it just, a few lines of Python code, and you could take 100 models, take the same, your same standard company base mesh, and wrap that onto characters, background characters, or whatever it was. Boom, done. One person now did the job of 20. And so these things have happened in the past. That's why we are where we are. And so going forward, I think it's also important to think about that right now, AI is hot shit. Everyone is trying to do everything they possibly can with AI. But all the things they're trying to do with AI might not make sense. And even though they end up not doing it with AI, it can still have that detrimental effect to, let's say, entry-level jobs, even though it's not an AI solution. And so just keep that in mind. AI right now is the buzzword that will fade at some point when it gets more normalized. But right now, it is being used for literally everything.
Do you think companies are going to fire based on AI technology that doesn't exist yet? Because I have a feeling they are.
No.
I think they might, in industries, they might think the tools are more mature than they're going to be.
Like that.
Like, rotoscoping is like 2 months away from being fully production ready. Let's just get rid of a rotoscope department. And then they're going to have to hire those guys back. Very disgruntled.
I mean, it could be someone trying to stay ahead of the curve and they think they see where it's going. But that's the hard part about all of this, right? It's like we literally can't predict the future. It might be that, in 6 months' time, legislation comes out that prohibits certain things because it's used copyrighted content, or that governments around the world agree that, okay, we can't have a certain level of compute power we use for AI, so we need to throttle it. So that brings most of it down. These are the things that we don't know. And it doesn't take a lot of law and legislation to halt, let's in quotation mark call it progress, like that. So it's that's why it's so tricky to predict, because you don't know. I mean, if the evolution of this just continued the way it was, then yeah, sure, it'll really explode in a few years' time, I think. But it's tricky to know. what's going to happen.
Yeah, we generally don't know what's going to happen with the models as well. Like if what we're seeing now is that if you go on Pinterest, which I'm sure Pinterest has been scraped like crazy, it's like 60% of all the Pinterest stuff I'm seeing is all AI generated. DeviantArt as well. I went there this morning, first time in like 5-6 years I'm on there, and it's all AI. It's really, really bad. The problem is if they start to scrape their own stuff again, like if they start to train on their own outputs, we don't know what's going to happen with that. Like then assuming it's going to get worse, and we don't know what's going to happen with the models themselves. Then we have, of course, the massive issue of GPUs, because all these require an insane amount of GPUs, where it's made in large way in Taiwan. Like a lot of the chip stuff is made in Taiwan, which is definitely there's definitely a conflict between China and Taiwan, which hopefully doesn't turn into anything like a hot war or anything like that. But that's a big unknown at that point. So we generally don't know what's going to happen with that. Same with like we discussed this in the economy podcast. We're talking about that the whole stock market, particularly the US stock market, is essentially held up by like 7 stocks. And that's essentially all AI related, like Nvidia, Microsoft, Apple, Google, a few more, Facebook or Meta, a few more there, where if that whole thing, if there's an issue with GPU supplies, then maybe the whole stock market crashes, which obviously is a massive issue by itself, that the whole stock market is, and your pension is tied up with.
Yeah, that's a bigger issue.
But that's all tied up. Your pension is tied up with GPUs from Taiwan. But that's a massive issue as well, and that's an issue. That's something I'm concerned about regarding AI. Is if you start to use AI, like if that starts to become an integral part of your workflow, that it might be, if you're a programmer today, a lot of programmers are like using that all the time with something like Copilot or just like straight up ChatGPT. If you start using that and suddenly it doesn't work anymore, you might be in trouble. And yeah, that's just a massive issue if you used to rely on it.
But that's what we're seeing there as well, like that second order effect in terms of ChatGPT, that in the past, when we were developing not this version of FlippedNormals, but the previous one that was on WordPress, a lot of the small custom things were made by me. And the way I did that was like, okay, I'll try something. I don't know anything about programming, a little bit. And I'll hope that I find someone who had my exact problem on Stack Overflow. And I would hope that worked. And if that didn't work, I might have a programmer I could ask, but not all the time. Now, if I face a similar issue, I literally just ask ChatGPT, which means I'm not the only one. I'm not even a programmer, and I do that. Which means that I can imagine that Stack Overflow has seen a drastic decrease in the amount of posts and replies, which is, I guess, kind of an issue as well for the AIs, because I would assume that a lot of the programming data is trained on stuff like Stack Overflow. And so you might also hit a wall there, I guess, at some point where, there's not that much content, and it has a bunch of content, but it can't really progress until we move on to the stage of like self-learning AI, and that's a whole scary thing,
A tricky thing with this whole thing as well, this is very much relating to that. If people stop using tools like Stack Overflow, they're not talking to each other anymore. And interesting things happen when people talk to each other. Interesting things do not happen when people talk to computers. Just like simple things like you might be asking a friend a question, and the friend is like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm having a birthday party on this weekend. At this birthday party, you meet your future wife, right? Like just simple things like that. Who knows what's going to happen with that? Who knows what fork this throws into, how this forks the future timelines of humanity, because one person talks to a computer instead of going to a party. Like it's just genuinely interesting. I think people crave human contact now more than ever, particularly after all the insane lockdowns we had a few years ago. Now that we get tools that allow means that you will talk less to people, that could be a real issue as well. Like maybe you feel because of Midjourney now, maybe you feel discouraged from even exploring art. Maybe we have a whole generation of people who never get into art because they don't feel like it. They think it's pointless.
I saw someone. It's a YouTuber called Moist Critical, and he does a bunch of random videos. He was doing a video on a Twitch streamer, Amaranth, who had like apparently created or had like an AI assistant or something created where you could chat with her. Like you could chat with her personality, obviously not her, I don't know if it's legit. I didn't watch the video. I just saw like the thumbnail from it and stuff. But it's like I could imagine where you could move into that. Is it called Her?
Yeah.
The film with Joaquin Phoenix,
2013
right?
one, I think. Yeah.
Right, where you move towards that, where it's like, okay, all of a sudden there are all these AI people available for you to chat with, and they're so real.
Yeah.
Their responses are real. The type of stuff that you chat about is real. They remember, and that's a scary thought.
And this is the worst it's ever going to be.
Yeah, it's only going to get better from here, which is terrible. That's one of the things I find interesting, actually. Oftentimes, we've talked about this a lot online, where you see something posted that's like a generative AI thing, and it looks really fucking good. It just looks really good. But a lot of the comments are like, this looks like garbage. This is terrible. My niece could make something that's better than this. Whereas like I will never understand this, like the disregard for the visuals that people see. It's like, no. I mean, it does look really good. That's why people are panicking. That's why we're making policies like this in order to protect ourselves. And I think this denial of where the technology is and how quickly it's evolving, it can be kind of detrimental, because you also have to think about, okay, how do you as an individual protect yourself? And what do you need to do? Do you need to learn new skills? You can't just disregard the technology and be like, this is terrible. It's never going to go anywhere. The same thing with 3D models, Right now, AI is not able to make usable 3D models. It can make something that kind of vaguely looks like a blob with some textures and stuff. Give it a year, give it 2 years, Just look at how fast Midjourney was at evolving, between the different versions. I don't know, 6-8 months or so, and every jump was it was crazy how much it improved. And I think we're going to see the same thing with 3D. And so, that's a real concern to me, because not only with entry level jobs, but what's the limit? Where is it going to stop? Is there a cap? Obviously, it's trained on human data, so will it max out at top human performance? Or what's going to happen once they get, I'm not going to call it more sentient, but have more compute power, I guess. That's a real concern to me.
Yeah, it was interesting seeing the evolution of it, because the stuff that was output from Midjourney like 2 years ago, that was not very good. It was very rough.
No.
And then they started having issues with 6-7 fingers, all that kind of stuff, like weird teeth and all that. And people are making fun of that. And then they fixed that. And then you can no longer tell, in most cases, that is an AI image based on the amount of fingers. And it becomes more subtle. There are just subtle things you can see. Sometimes you can definitely see that is AI due to like the very distinct art style of it, where it's this like soft, blurry kind of stuff. But you can get around that, where it doesn't have to look AI. I've seen tons of images that I have no idea are generated or not. And I think you're kidding yourself if you're looking at AI today and you're like, yeah, it doesn't look good. I mean, why are we then afraid of it? Why are we then talking about threatening jobs? Because a new technology that wasn't very good would come, or because they scrape data. I mean, you can make a bot right now that scrapes all of Reddit. It's not going to do anything. You just have all the images. Cool. The dangerous thing is that it can synthesize those into new things. That's why it's scary.
Yeah, I think I saw like a scary one that I saw was someone did like a prompt, probably in Midjourney, where one of the tags included was like shot on iPhone or something like that, shot on a phone. And it just upped the realism to a crazy degree, because that's not usually what you see output from AI, right? It's always like cinematically perfect shots, film things with perfect lighting, a lot of depth of field, bokeh in the background, all that stuff. But this was like, it looked like it had been shot on an iPhone 10. Like, I couldn't tell. Maybe if you zoom in, you study it, but that's not what we do with images, right? Especially with our modern attention spans. It's like swipe, swipe, swipe. Oh, okay, yeah, that looks cool. And then you come across an image like that, unless you like go, Detective Pikachu on that, you're probably not going to be able to tell.
I'm concerned about the ethics of it as well, because it has its biases. Some years ago, when Apple came out with its credit card that was based, their algorithm, which I think was Goldman Sachs who was issuing that, they used an algorithm to determine who could get credit cards or not, and people who would have the exact same credit scores in the US, you don't have credit scores in Europe to the same degree. The man in the relationship, he would get a higher credit limit than the woman because there was bias in it. It's not because women are worse at using credit cards, but historically women wouldn't get credit cards, so they would be worse at using credit cards because they just wouldn't have access to it. So there's bias in that. I've seen similar examples with ChatGPT where if you try something as simple as write me a joke about a Swedish man, it gives you a crappy joke about a Swedish man. Then if you ask write me a joke about a Chinese man, and it refuses to give you an output where it's just a nationality. You don't have anything like, there's nothing racist or xenophobic or anything in your prompt. It just refuses to give you an output in that regard. And that's a huge issue because now the ethics are essentially determined by either there are things that were like OpenAI and Midjourney, so you're putting their thumb on the scale, meaning that there is a Silicon Valley company is now saying what's ethical or what's not ethical, or you just have the data which it's training on has a lot of bias in it. It's not even like what is the good or a bad thing to do. It's just the fact that there is bias in the models. That's a huge concern, particularly because a lot of the data would be coming from like American sources, which American bias shouldn't apply to like Norwegian or Swedish politics. It's a whole different thing. Basically, you either got to be really careful with the bias you're putting into models like that the whole world is going to be using. If you put an AI model into a Samsung phone or like into Android, or let's say you do have two AI models, one goes into Android, one goes into iOS, you now have two AI models that's going to determine a lot of what people talk about because everyone is using either an Android or an iPhone. That's concerning. That's not... It's hard to see the second order effects of that. Imagine you were to go 50 years in the future and all Siri searches or all Google searches or all prompts you've ever done have the bias from a Silicon Valley tech company. That is just inherently incredibly problematic. So I have no idea what the solution there is, but it's something I'm thinking about.
It's like all countries should have an LLM, and then they need to merge it into one giant LLM and like make it decentralized. So we use crypto to decentralize it, but also it's AI at the same time, so we get all the buzzwords. Then that's the perfect solution.
If you pitch that, you're gonna get $200 million off from a Silicon Valley venture fund tomorrow.
You want to make a crypto-based AI large
with
language model.
NFTs.
That's the pitch.
Yeah,
with NFTs, of course, right? Yeah.
then you're golden. But there is an issue with the fact that being an artist, it's really difficult. Like it's legit, really, really, really difficult to get to a level where you can work professionally. But even getting into art school, you need to be at quite a decent level to get into an art school, or just to be even like to have fun with art. Like there is a difficulty curve. If you're just sitting down and just playing with pencils, it's not an easy thing to do. It's not like you just write some stuff and you get something beautifully output. It's difficult, and in order to get good at art, you have to do a lot of difficult things. You have to really learn a lot of deep fundamentals. But what if you don't? What if you can just make a crappy 3D model of something and then just use a tool like Morten and I, we looked at one before called Magnific, which is just insane. It just allows you to upres something that looks kind of crappy and turns it into something that looks really good. What if you can just do that at all points in your art career where you never have to learn fundamentals? Then you're going to reach a point where you don't really develop your own style because the style is going to be determined by the AI, and you don't really have to encounter any truly hard problems. You don't really develop your own taste. You just don't really have to confront what is like being an artist, which is in large part about understanding the world. If you're learning 3D, you have to understand something about lighting, about how materials work, about anatomy. You have to learn about philosophy to some degree when it comes to the art part. But if you can just prompt things and stuff goes in there, or do something crappy and something beautiful comes out, that's an issue, because now you're going to have a whole generation of people that genuinely don't have like core fundamental skills. I know I sound like a complete grandpa when it comes to this. Like kids these days don't know how to change a tire, But it is actually kind of important, because that's the whole thing we keep talking about all the time, how important fundamentals are. And the fundamentals are there because they're everlasting, they're ever present. Dynamic pose or good storytelling is evergreen.
I think something that's important to keep in mind here is that, not to make this a life lesson, but as with everything in life, it's in the struggles that you learn to grow. And the same thing applies to art. It's when you try to make a portrait and you sit down and you can't get it right. You can't get the perspective right. The face is lopsided. One eye is way too big and one nostril is way too small. And that makes you, then you look at that and you're like, oh, okay, this is great, you think, until you show it to someone who is able to more critically evaluate it. They go like, no, this is not great, and this is how you make it great. And you're, okay, I need to learn from that. And then you try again, and you try again, and you try again. So it's this iterative process where you have to embrace the suck in order to actually get better. And unfortunately, with a lot of the AI tools, it's very easy to skip that stage. Like, you actually have an out for that. Right now I'm just looking at Magnific's page. We'll try to put some visuals up on screen as well. And what it can do, just like baseline, what it can do is amazing. Like, this looks like an incredible tool. Like, just objectively what it does, it just enhances your images. The problem is where your base is as an artist. If you have these tools and you can rely on these tools, you might never need anything more than that. One of the examples that I saw on Twitter a couple weeks ago was someone made a donut in 3D. Like, the lighting was like realistic, probably from an HDRI or something, but it just had donut colors. It wasn't anything spectacular. Throw it through, something like Magnific, and I think that's what they did. All of a sudden, the donut had like really nice glazing, amazing reflections. You could see like little specks of sugar, like fat, and a little bit of, glistening, and the lighting was amazing on it. You've taken a base of something that you did create, but totally changed the output. And with tools like this, I feel like it goes beyond enhancing because it actually creates. So you can end up with something like, you look at some of these examples. One of the ones is like, right now I'm looking at, it's like enhancing 3D renders using AI, and there's a dragon. And it takes it from, the lighting in the base images is gorgeous. Really nice, soft, and like dappled light on this dragon, and the dragon looks amazing. Then you run it through Magnific and boom, okay, VFX quality right there. And I can definitely see people starting to use this and incorporate this into their portfolio, which is what we've seen with some of the products on FlippedNormals. We get duped. All of a sudden, you have marketing images that don't represent the end product at all. And then, things get posted on Reddit and people are disappointed in us. But it's like, sometimes it's just really hard to tell, especially as these tools just get better and better, faster and faster.
The difference as well between a great image or a great sculptor, a great artist, to like a phenomenal one, is honestly quite subtle. It's not like one is just quote unquote better. It's 100 or 1,000 tiny little things here and there. Like, we started in the film industry 10 years ago this year, and I'm a much better artist today than I was back then. But if you were to have my art back then compared to now, it's subtle. It's like subtle things here and there. Like, overall, I'm faster and more refined and all that. This is when we started, just after we started FlippedNormals. But in order to go from that 2014 to 2015, 2024 version of Henning, you need to go through a lot of pain. You need to just learn a lot of different software things. You just need to learn a lot of different things. It's a life journey, and I'm like concerned what happens when you're deprived of that. In the one of the examples as well, with how hard it is to see if something is AI or not. Like, sometimes you can very easily, but sometimes you can't. We had one which was a rig and it looked gorgeous. It was this beautiful lady with a rig, which was rigged, and the artist had Photoshop controllers on top of it, so it looked like it was a rig. It could have totally been a a rig, which was real. We started looking a bit further on it, like some of the stuff didn't make too much sense from pure logical point of view. But when you're just looking at that, you're not critically evaluating. You're like, yeah, that's a beautiful image with just controllers on top. You're just like, yep, that tracks. So that's really difficult it's really difficult for everyone to see that. Everyone is getting get fooled when it comes to this going forward, particularly like me. I'm gonna be fooled all the time by this going forward. So we're gonna do the best we can to avoid it, of course, but man, it's a hard one. It's a hard one to avoid.
Yeah, but also, like, I don't approach it from that lens of like, this is probably AI. Let me find a reason to figure out why it's not. I don't assume things are AI generated, but maybe I should. Maybe I should start that. But then again, I don't have time to like play Detective Pikachu on every single picture and go, okay, there's a strand of hair, and you know, it was like when well, I don't know what company owns Magic, the Gathering, like the card collection thing, but they came out with like an image recently displaying like some cards, and the background for that was AI generated or something, I think, because there was a lot of controversy about that. Magic said it wasn't, but then it was. But I don't know where it ended up. It probably was. And people were pointing out, okay, it's clearly AI because the filaments of this light bulb doesn't make sense. And I'm like, I wouldn't know. Like, you need so much specific knowledge on, minute things. I feel like that's where we are at this point in time. And I can't dedicate the time to study every single image like that in order to figure out if it's AI or not.
That is when we are in the terrified camp, because we had some concerns and stuff we're excited about. One thing I'm terrified is that we can no longer tell what's real or not. I mean, I think the two of us are fairly decent at character art and looking at faces and all that, but I'm looking at AI faces and I legit can't tell. Sometimes I can tell if it's a sharp close up. I can quite easily tell because the pores, or maybe the skin kit. I've seen more pores than most people, I think. I know pores. I know what pores look like on a face, and it's not there yet. But if it's slightly out of focus or like you can't see that, and the lighting is like shot on iPhone kind of thing, it's really difficult. So then, of course, you have the whole like the issues with that, like any kind of political campaign or anything like that becomes a real nightmare, where you can make somebody say something and you have no way to control that.
Or like the Santa Claus thing with Leonardo DiCaprio. We watched.
Oh yeah.
Remember that? Like crazy. There was like a deep fake thing with him, I think Margot Robbie and stuff. It was weird, and like it was really well done. That's scary, when we approach that. Even tools like the translation tools was like, it's a positive. Yay, we can translate things with AI, but then at the same time, you can deepfake it. And so I've seen some tests where people take content that they do in English and then they get it translated into, let's say, Spanish with mouth movements as well, like both the audio and the mouth movement. And again, people are like, oh, this is terrible. But, it's a good proof of concept of what can happen. And then imagine people like us who have put our faces on the internet for the past 10 years. Well, I guess we didn't really use faces for 10 years, but let's call it 5 or 6 years. There's a lot of content of people like us, or YouTubers, or Twitch streamers, or celebrities, just ready to grab and train models on. By the way, don't do that. That's
we
terrifying.
Have people on our Discord make deep fakes really of the two of us. I mean, with consent, so that was fine. And that's years ago now. If that was done today, I've seen people make videos with 2 minutes of footage, and it's good. It's like, if you know the person, maybe you can tell. But if you don't know the person, it's just a random person talking. You don't know the mannerisms with dialect or accent or anything like that. You just won't be able to tell. So knowing what's real or what's not real, a massive concern.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that we saw from other companies, which is also one of the big things that prompted us to actually formalize this in a more real sense, is the fact that it seemed like most companies were not thinking about the artists. They weren't thinking about where does all the work come from and they were definitely thinking of where are we headed, and where we're headed is an AI driven world, not an artist driven world. And I think for both of us, it's kind of like it's a thing that makes us sad because we like this community, we like the subjects, and we like what we do. And to see that from big corporations, like Epic, what we're seeing with CG Trader, even the stuff on DeviantArt as well, what we talked about before, none of that really favors artists anymore, which is, I think, is a shame because, we built this. Obviously, people have built models that take our stuff and then they built that, but everything is made from the stuff that we've created. And to have companies kind of in a way just dismiss that and go, we don't believe in you anymore. You're not the future. Technology is the future. It's a sad outlook for the future.
There was there was a fun little thing happening on Twitter, I think some weeks ago now, with between a game artist called Del Walker and Nicki Minaj, which absolutely ridiculous what was happening there. And people like Nicki Minaj is very openly using AI for promotion, which, whatever they want to do, like, yeah, it's stolen data and all that, but the the issue is, like, they're fine with that. The problem is, of course, the moment somebody's going to make an AI of Nicki Minaj, then they're not going to be fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to read up what he said because I found this. I thought I thought Dell was very spot on, where he said, what I realized about AI images in your marketing? It sends out the message that you've got no budget. It's a digital equivalent of wearing an obviously fake Chanel bag. Your whole brand immediately appears feeble and impoverished. And it's true, like, looking at here, there's a picture of a clearly AI generated version of a Richard Mille watch, one of the more expensive watches, like $1 million watches. And even the font is crappy. Like, it doesn't read. You only know as Richard Mille if you know the brand Richard Mille, and it just seems kind of crappy here. But it's like there isn't like a cohesion even within the artist community. Like, somebody who's a musician, I would very much assume that they were to be on the favor of not using these kind of tools, because this is going to come for everyone. This is going to be a matter of time before this kind of stuff is going to be like recreate music perfectly.
I mean, I've seen that with someone did it with like Eminem or something, like some songs from Eminem, where they changed the lyrics of, I don't know, Slim Shady or something, and the melody was the same, the beat was the same, but the lyrics were different, and it sounded like so convincing. And I was just surprised that, it was the visuals that's what people had to go at first, creating Midjourney, Dolly, whatever. I for real thought it was going to be some of the other stuff, like definitely programming, maybe music, but not the visuals that we produce. Joke's on me, I guess. But it will come for everyone eventually.
And apologies for my weird face at the moment. I have a sun right in my face through the blinds.
I've been attacked by the sun.
So this looks absolutely ridiculous, but that's something people will have to deal with. Just listen to me instead.
It's a nice contour on your face. You could definitely see the outline.
It's even
now.
worse because you're seeing it from a different angle than what the actual one's filming. It looks ridiculous. But yeah, it is what it is.
Maybe we should see if we can get AI to fix that or something.
Yeah, it wouldn't be surprised. That's actually something we talked about as well, which I think is interesting, like restoring images. That's something that makes me excited and not excited, because like, if you have like old footage that's like properly damaged, let's say it's like a VHS tape or something like that, then, and you can remove the artifacts from a VHS tape, then awesome. The problem is if it starts to add stuff that isn't there, now suddenly you created fake history, which is a problem, isn't it? So
we've learned that it's bad. Erasing people from history. We've been over this. It's not a good look. You start to look like certain nations, and you don't want to do that. It's bad
even
for
just
everyone.
With tools like here at Magnific, where I mean the reason you probably want to use this is that you just want to enhance an image. You don't really care too much about it. Maybe this is a marketing image, and you just want to make this look better. But it doesn't enhance the image. It actually changes the image. Yes, sure, it makes it look more real or not, but that's not often what you want. You want to control the image. You want to be sure that what's there is what was original there, particularly if you're dealing with any kind of historical photos or something like that. So for me, that's a that's a big concern as well. I think it's awesome if you can restore things, but my God, this has like implications for like history.
Yeah, another thing for me is back to the whole melancholic thing about all this AI stuff. It's just that it's dissuading a lot of people to continue with their art career or even get into it because they're afraid of what AI will do to any possible career of theirs in the future. And I totally understand. I would have reservations about starting an art career now because like I we don't know what that means. What does it entail? Does it mean that in 5 years, in order to be an artist, you're foregoing a lot of the fundamentals of being an artist and relying more on AI generated content? Who knows? But I think that's sad because art for so many of us is like it's a challenge. It's a way to express ourselves. It's something that you do because it makes you happy. It's something that it's a nice outlet. You can express yourselves. You can create something that wasn't there before, that didn't exist. And with tools coming along that are this powerful, unfortunately, it does dissuade a lot of people, which is sad to see. And that's one of the things that like terrifies me the most, because that means potentially our industry will slowly start to collapse. We'll have less artists, less demand because AR tools, they start to explode in popularity.
Hopefully, nobody knows what's going to happen. One of the optimistic scenarios I'm having, which who knows what's going to happen, is that you're going to have a lot more smaller tools, or a lot more smaller companies. You don't need to have an outsourcing company to be able to create assets for a game. You can have a few talented artists create the general vision for the game, and then they can create awesome looking games, awesome looking movies, awesome looking commercials, whatever it is. So there's going to be a lot more opportunities for people who are strong in art direction and they have like real grit. But I do realistically think that if that happens, that's going to be at the cost of a lot of like traditional art jobs. It's even weird calling them traditional art jobs because the whole VFX field is like 30 years old. So, but so it's ever changing. Even just like retopology is like 10 years old. You wouldn't do that really before that time, but that's kind of like hopefully like what can happen, that we just have a lot more smaller companies that can punch way above their weight. But who knows what's going to happen with this.
Yeah, no, it's I want to be optimistic for the future, but there are definitely parts of it where it's hard when you don't know what the repercussions are going to be, and what kind of laws are going to come into play and do one thing or another. Hopefully we will see people come together and they have some, I guess, common sense laws around protecting stuff, because I think we need that. Otherwise I think we're heading into a depressing dark age of not a lot of human art, but mostly AI
it's
art.
not just
AI. I don't want to call it art, but AI images.
It's not just art as well. Like, I mean, it's not like art is the only thing that's going to be automated here and removed. You're gonna have all sorts of different things, accounting, programming, all sorts of different things are going to disappear. So we if everyone loses their job, who's going to be buying stuff from the companies? Like it's
exactly.
just going to be a massive issue when it comes to that.
I guess it's kind of like, in a weird way, like if we relate this to other types of jobs, if you take something like truck drivers, right? It's a core job. It's something that the world literally couldn't function without, like if we didn't have truck drivers. But at the same time, there's also people looking into how do you automate all the truck driving. But is that something we really do? Because then we displace millions of people that have a job, and maybe for like human happiness, it's not worth doing that. And I think the same thing maybe with art. It's like, you can argue the importance of creating a drawing versus delivering goods to around the world. Is like it has different has different meanings to different people, obviously. But I think it also, just because you can automate something doesn't necessarily mean that you have to.
Personally, I think the best future is 3 CEOs owning the whole world and 8 billion people being unemployed.
Yeah, that's where we're headed. But I don't really think I have much more to touch on this topic. You know, the important thing for us here was to let you know that we're sort of working out our policy, and we'll make that. I mean, I guess we've made it public now, but we'll start to get that into writing and enforce it on the platform. Not that we have many products that need to be corrected, let's say, because we have been kind of on that over the past couple months. But still, you know, it's nice to formulate it so people know that where we stand, and especially letting people know that we aren't turning in to the next ArtStation. We aren't turning into the next CG Trader. That's like, we want to actively go in the opposite direction. And typically, you know, when we talk about other platforms, it's, you know, it's like the other platforms are competitors for us. That's what it is, and competition is healthy. And I never like to throw anyone on the bus or like, you know, raise ourselves above anyone else and say, well, we're doing is better than them. It's like, no, we're doing things differently. But from my perspective on this whole debate, I just feel like standing with people might be the best approach for this. I could be wrong, you know. I'm not really interested in creating an AI model. I find it fascinating, but it's not something I would want to work with. And so I think for us, it does really make sense to stay artist and human focused, and leave the AI stuff to other people.
Yeah, help. I mean, artists are having a really hard time now with the video game layoffs, VFX strikes, everything there. We're having a hard time. Everyone is having a hard time now. Let's not make it harder than it has to. Let's not accelerate the decline of artists. Instead, let's give the art community back high quality tutorials like we've been doing on YouTube, and paid tutorials, and let's encourage like the creator economy, really. Like, let's encourage game artists and VFX artists and everyone else who's creative to make awesome products and hopefully be able to help make a living from that. I think that's, if we can help make that happen, that would be really, really nice. I just want to help. I just want to help artists.
One thing that we talked about as well, and we've talked about this a lot actually, like other facets of FlippedNormals. You know, what else can you turn it into? And one of the first things we created many years ago was like the hub, hub.flippednormals.com, where we had blog posts and guest posts and whatnot. Then we created the challenges forum for a place where people could learn and they could win prizes. And some of the other stuff that we've talked about is like maybe a job site or a portfolio section, because we start to see more and more demand for that. I mean, we don't have the funds to create an actual portfolio site right now because we just got the marketplace up and running. But those are the things that I think are exciting for us, and hopefully maybe for the community, because it means that we could still have a place, you know, carve out a little space on the internet that's still artist focused and artist driven, that doesn't get flooded with AI art. I should stop saying that, AI images, and you know, keep it in the family. That's one of the things that sort of makes me excited about the future, is things that we can contribute to this, that might have a positive effect.
More of an artisan feel to it, more of made by artists for artists. That's what we would love to do. I would personally, now it's future stuff, but I would love to make a portfolio site in the future. Turns out the marketplace is not that different from a portfolio site in terms of the actual structure. Just turns out you need some funding for that. So that would be a future thing. But there might be more things we can do in regards to that. If there would be a future where we were to be able to make a gallery, a portfolio site for artists without standing next to AI art, where you just know that what's here is created, is crafted by people. I think that would be fantastic. I think people would really like that. But again, no promises on that.
Yeah, that's for the maybe future.
For the maybe future. But that at least makes me excited. If that doesn't happen, then I'm just excited regardless.
Yeah. Or think that about, that sums it up for us. Unless you have anything else you want to add, Henning?
No, I think so. Only thing is that this is a fast moving field. We haven't really been talking about this before because we want to see what was happening. Like we need to know what competitors were doing. We need to know what's happening in terms of the general models. And when every single one of our competitors is where we can tell who's been taking a stance, who's been taking the stance, and what we believe to be the wrong stand. We had to come out and be like, wait, what's going on here? The guys who are leaders of the art field are not pro artists. What's going on here? Let's try to. We're a small company. We're not in any way a major player. But if we can have the tiniest positive impact on this, then I hope that can make just the tiniest difference. That will make me very happy.
Yeah, same.
All right, cool.
I think that wraps it up. So thank you so much for listening in or watching if you're on YouTube. And we will see you in the next episode.
See you so much.